having that basis of the Catholic education, because those values were already instilled, it's just a matter of me being able to apply them now in this real world setting, as opposed where I've had I've had practice in a smaller setting, in my high school and in my community, but now it's being able to apply it to a large scale community.
And welcome to another episode of the SMA Audio Experience Podcast. On this week's episode, we're taking a little change from speaking to principals or school administrators in the Catholic school system, and we're going to have a little treat. We're actually going to do a follow-up and update with a past podcast guest. So on today's podcast, we have none other than Mr. Sean Panado. Sean, hey, thanks for joining us on the call.
How you doing, Mark? I'm doing well. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Well, when I look back, I was looking back on the DMs and also on the podcast episode list. It's been a couple months since we last spoke to you. When we last spoke to you, it was about, the week before you leaving to, do that move up to UCLA. So we want to first off share with us a little bit. How's it been since you moved up there?
It's been okay. Los Angeles is a city. It's not too different from San Diego. I'd say it's just a little bit more city-like, a little bit more busy. San Diego has a little bit more of a relaxed vibe, but and the traffic is definitely a lot worse. But other than that, I love the city. I love the weather, and as a school, UCLA is not too bad academically. But I've just been telling a lot of my friends and family that it's been a big adjustment socially.
Okay. And when you say socially, is it just because the multiplication, the sheer amounts of, students and people from, all over the place, and everything in that whole bucket?
Right. And so like I said in my previous podcast, and when I gave a little bit of my background, saying I attended, because I attended a small private school, a Catholic school from preschool all the way up through the end of high school. And I knew coming into UCLA, it's going to be a very different environment. I'm going to school with about 30,000 other undergrads, as opposed to my small 700 high school. And it's going to be a lot more diverse, a lot more different backgrounds. We have international students from all over the country. It's just very different from what I'm used to. And just adjusting socially has been the hardest, I'd say the hardest challenge I've faced since moving out here.
And then I know, in keeping up with, your tweets and everything that you have going on, like one interesting thing, stuck out to me, because it's been a handful of years since I was last at college, was some of the either in the living areas where you stay, or you come in across other students where I think it was in that first month where you noticed the difference between those students who are used to having things just kind of available to them versus, for you're, like how you said, you moved, multiple times throughout your, young adult life. So being very independent, was an advantage to you making that transition at UCLA. What other things like that, did you notice that your past or your upbringing kind of set you up for, being able to cope with this transition easier?
The qualities and the values that I've learned from my upbringing, from my elementary school, my middle school, and my high school, the way that I apply those values of truth and community and love, it's a difference in this kind of setting. It's a very complex topic, but for example, I'll break it down to the most simplest example I could think of. For example, when I was out in high school or middle school, you could leave your backpack or your books out on campus, anywhere on campus, and it wouldn't be touched, wouldn't be bothered. But when you come out here to UCLA, there's so many other students. You're not very familiar with the other students that are on campus, so you can't necessarily trust them. Unfortunately, you wish you could, but I've gone the short end of the stick in that case, and I've had to learn the hard way within my first couple months here that that's just the reality of it. And it's just been very difficult socially, like I said, excuse me, because when you're coming from that small school environment where everyone is tight knit and you know everyone, you're coming out to the real world um, with a school like UCLA, and it's just very difficult to apply those values of unity, truth, and love, and honesty and integrity in the same ways, if that makes sense. There are different, I'm learning ways right now to incorporate those values into my daily life because it's so different of a community from what I'm used to in my upbringing, if that makes sense.
That does. That does. I remember feeling that when I got done with my Catholic school, high school stint. How I was like you, how, we Catholic school, all your, elementary into high school years. And then when you make that jump into like a public university, like you said, with so many different uh, philosophies, religions, and everyone coming from their norm into a new norm. I agree because some of the things where your actions or things you may say, you're used to either getting something reciprocated back, either that's because that's how the culture or the environment of your past environments were, but then sometimes not getting that back or actually getting either pushback or misunderstanding and all that stuff. It gets hard because for so many years you're used to talking things through or communicating things through and working things out, and it gets more challenging and, like, I agree with you, complex when it hits into that college area, that college culture.
Exactly. And you spoke a lot about, or you used a very good word that I like to use a lot, is culture. And it's just really is a very different culture out here than what I'm used to. And right now I'm just in the process of getting to learn how to adjust to the culture because it is very different from what I'm used to.
Makes sense. And I've thought of that for many years with with other friends, family members, or acquaintances, kids who make that jump into college. And so far I've come to the realization that even if you have maybe an older sibling or a mentor or someone that who gets to there a little a year or a couple of years before you, and they try to describe things, and you kind of witness things, maybe you may visit, or they live at home and they commute to college. The one truth that I found so far, and I haven't found anyone to show me other sources otherwise, is unfortunately you just there you can, no one can ever relive it for you. You just have to go through it, right?
Right.
That's what I find, like, everyone's like, hey, what can I do to prepare? And it's just one of those things where it's one of many experiences where, as someone can try to relive it, someone maybe put on some VR head goggles or glasses, or you make an experience out of it, but I
Mm-hmm.
still don't think it will never match just living it day to day.
Right. Yeah, I agree with that. I agree completely.
Cool. Very cool. All right. Well, no, that's good. I mean, that one of the things I want to switch it up, because we're going to be, I don't know which episode this is going to be. This is going to be between episode 21 and 25. And it's that time where it popped in my head to reach back out to you. Well, one, wanted to see how you're doing, because I know you're going to be, just do super well, just as you go through your process. But it got me thinking, because I was starting to see, like, on social media, how we do a lot. We're going through that cycle where there's that cycle for elementary schools. Hey, enrolling now, get registered for the new school year at, your local Catholic school or your high school, etc. And I thought about it and I said, oh, what about love for those alumni, who make that jump from high school to college? And it's one of those things where it's just to give a dose of truth, I guess, to current high school students who happen to graduate SMA or any other Catholic elementary school, or they're in high school, they're at Mater Dei, at Saints, at Cathedral, or any other local San Diego high school. And the truth is, you just you can't simulate college the best you can. You just have to kind of go through it. But
Right.
but having those fundamentals really help. I mean, because I'd watch some of I look at some of the tweets that you'd have, and you could see how you applied some of that stuff, especially with your post and your work ethic about keeping to like a structured schedule, like that athlete's mentality, just to kind of,
Right.
with all that commotion, it helps center you, right? It helps give you a
Right.
good start for the day, right?
Right.
That's cool.
I agree. No, yeah, I've also been telling people that for those from my middle school and high school, that having that basis of the Catholic education, because those values were already instilled, it's just a matter of me being able to apply them now in this real world setting, as opposed where I've had I've had practice in a smaller setting, in my high school and in my community, but now it's being able to apply it to a large scale community. But opposed to those who weren't able to get brought up through Catholic education or a small private school setting, I feel like those are the ones that are struggling, who aren't entirely having trouble, but they are struggling a little bit here in college, because they're still learning to, one, develop those values and learn how to harness them. And now they have to also learn how to apply them. So they have double the trouble, as opposed to me, where I already have it within me. It's just a matter of knowing when to apply them, where are my opportunities. But like I've always also told people that I've learned to just realize that respect and kindness are the two qualities that really break through to anyone. Just simply smiling or simply being nice to someone. There's no reason why someone should reject or deny those two qualities whenever you're coming across someone.
I agree with you 100%. I mean, the thought just came to my mind right now is where your idea of 1+1, all across the world, everyone knows 1+1 is 2, regardless of where you come from. Your 1+1 is solid as granite, solid as a rock. It's just applying how you communicate your 1+1 to the other people around you. So that's cool. That's very, very cool.
Right.
That's awesome. Since you've been there, like obviously, you're into sports. Have you joined like any basketball club sports, team sports, like other, clubs, government things, made new friends? Like what new things have you kind of gotten into since going there? Even though, like I know you're focused on your studies, but what other things have you gotten into or peaked at?
As far as sports goes, I'm planning on joining the club basketball team next year. I'm good friends with the captain of it, and it's kind of like a student-ran team. But this year they've had a lot of seniors, so they said, come by next year and we'll open up a spot for you. I've practiced and worked out with them, so they're very open to me joining the team next year. So that'll be exciting. I've also joined. I got a new job on campus at the gym here.
Nice.
My title is a Fitwell consultant, so I'm anything general exercise, very simple. I'm just working at the gym, making sure everything is safe, clean, organized, helping anyone if they need any basic assistance. And then I'm trying to use that as an avenue for me to intern in the upcoming fall, for the women's strength and conditioning program, women's basketball strength and conditioning program. My high school strength and conditioning coach actually worked here at UCLA, and I'll be interning for him this summer at my old high school. So I'll be returning there, helping out younger athletes and younger high school students with their movements and with their exercises and their working out, for me to kind of translate that to the college level when I apply for the women's basketball program.
That's cool, man. I'm glad that you mentioned that, because that was one of the things I wanted to talk to you about. And now more than ever, especially if people are going to college, because the market is just so different during college right now, and even after you get out of college, no matter what category or what profession or skill that you want to become an expert on. And that idea of getting work early, having getting jobs or internships or opportunities, and taking advantage of that like early on in your college career is huge. Because like if people pause, go back about 30 seconds in this podcast episode, and if they like take a sheet of paper and they look at it, it's like, well, okay, cool, first year freshman, not even done with the first year, you already kind of you go in, you already know, like you mentioned in the last episode, that there's that sports medicine that general background that you talked about, and then you started, finding a job on campus. It's in stuff that you like. It kind of, it's there, and then you already, just in your wording, you already said, hey, that's like a stepping stone or an in. You already started, working. You want to do that internship program for the women's basketball side on that team, along with
Right.
all that other stuff. I mean, if someone breaks that down, that's like 3 or 4 bullet points. Very simple, right? But it's cool because then now, like, you see the magic of putting in the work in that process, like methodically with purpose. I think anybody can. And what's cool is, I think even now more than ever, someone can take that of what you're applying in college, but they can do that in their high school career if they wanted to. If they're a high school
Exactly.
student right now, they just take the same fundamental, the 1+1, like what we just mentioned a minute ago, and then do that of like what you're doing, but apply it during high school. Oh man, like that, I think that's just cool. I think it's very, very practical.
Yeah, and then kind of going off that, I just what I've learned to enjoy and kind of obsess over here my time by myself and being independent here in college is kind of just enjoying the process and kind of embracing the process. I feel like I was reading this book and it kind of said you have to embrace the process and love it more than you crave results, because just like anything, it's about the journey. It's not the destination. It's about how you do it. It's about how you do it. It's not what you get out of it. And that's what I've just been kind of realizing here. It's just be about growth and just continue to grow, and the results will come. So like you said, 1+1=2. You can't get 1 plus I don't know, 1=2. You can't skip steps. It has to be 1+1=2.
Mm-hmm. Yep. No, exactly. And which book were you reading? Because I want to make sure we note that in the show notes, so that if people want to listen to that on Audible, or they want to, read the book, what book did you catch that thought on?
It's from let's see, it's Relentless by Tim Grover. He was the physical fitness trainer for Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant.
Nice. That's on many of the business and entrepreneurs that I follow. That's on their reading list. So I have read through that one. That's a solid book. That's a very, very solid book. And for people listening, yes, even though you're listening, you can still read books. And if you're busy, just listen to the. Like there's no excuses, right? You find so many ways there. If you don't read well, okay, you can go listen to the book. You can still get that content and that knowledge. With with you mentioning about, getting your job on campus, and, you got your plan laid out there, how have things been, with just staying in touch with family, keeping that connection there? I'm sure, like, either texting or Skype chats or visiting, like how's that been balancing, like, the life, the family part? Because I know family's so huge to you. How's that been during the first year of college?
Just like any other college freshman, I'm going through the growing pains of missing home sometimes, and finding time to reach out to my mom and my brothers and asking how things are going. But I do like where I stand right now, because even though I do miss them and I do want to spend time with them, I know that me being here will provide for me more opportunity in the future, or better opportunities in the future, to be with them. I know being here, I'm here for a purpose, and that's for me to be able to give back to them. And when I do graduate, it's for me to find ways to be able to help them out. So I'm okay with how things are here. It's tough sometimes, but I'm still able to reach out to my mom, and it makes my home time, the time when I do come home, a little bit nice, a little bit more pleasant, because it is more of a rarity for when I go home. So the dinners are a little bit nicer. It's a lot more positivity around, which is what I like.
That's cool. That's very cool. Very, very cool. All right. Well, we know that, you got a couple of classes, later on, and, we wanted to make sure to touch base with you. And, we knew that, I personally had a really strong gut feeling that you would have some good stories and some reflection back, where those fundamentals, those anchors in your life and within yourself, would do you just fine for the start of this college process. So that's great. so far, if there's something that you can leave, like I'll say, if there's something you can leave to your fellow, Catholic high school, students that are following right behind you, and also, those who are in elementary school, say like in junior high, 6th, 7th, 8th grade, if you can speak to those two different audiences, is there something, and it doesn't have to be the same thing, but is there something at your current stage right now that you'd love to share with them to give them a little more perspective, or insight of what you've learned so far?
Yeah, I remember on my last podcast, I said my emphasis was why not? Why not try and fulfill or complete anything that's possible? If it's possible, then there is a chance. And I kind of ended it on why stay content with being mediocre. Why not step out of your comfort zone to grow? And I think that's been my biggest term that I've been using to drive me through this first year is growth, and just and trust the process and really embrace it. I feel like in high school and middle school, for example, you're very concerned about in school specifically, you're very concerned about the grade as opposed to learning. You should be more concerned about learning the material as opposed to getting the A. If you get the A through cheating or not studying and just going through it by a breeze, you're really not getting anything out of it. And really, that's just what I've been preaching here in college is why not wake up early, just make my bed, get my workout in, grab a good breakfast, go to class, finish notes, review my notes, and then have the rest of the night to spend time with friends and just mess around and enjoy the college life. But get your work done early, embrace the process, and really be about growth. Like I said, you got to obsess over the process and as opposed to craving the results. Everyone wants the fame and the fortune, but they're not willing to put in the work.
I agree. Awesome. Very, very simple and, core impactful, set of words that you've said. So that is awesome. Well, I want to thank you again for, taking time out of your day to, record with us, just where you're at, being open, having tons of integrity and lots of love that you want to share. Because as this keeps growing, we had more people reach out like from LA, or other LA schools or other parts of the United States. So we know that it's slowly growing, but we know that your words of wisdom will last for a long time. So it's very impactful, and we're very thankful for your time.
Of course, Mark. Thanks for always having me. I appreciate doing these.
No problem. Well, cool. Everyone, that's been another epic episode of the SMA Audio Experience Podcast. Thanks again for joining us. We'll hear you next time on the next episode. Take care for now. Thanks again for listening to another episode of the SMA Audio Experience Podcast, brought to you by St. Michael San Diego's Technology and Social Media team. For more information, go ahead and visit our website at www.smasandiego.org. On Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram, we use the common handle or username of SMA San Diego. So you can definitely reach out to us there, leave a tweet, a message, a post, a comment. We'll be happy to engage with you, answer all your questions, and really join in part of sharing the St. Michael San Diego story on social media and on the internet, and also via the podcast. So thanks again for listening. Take care, and we'll hear you next week.